Hey, gentlemen, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's the U.S. the U.S. enters war, right? So that's the Israeli war, but we only have so much room in the title. And we're also going to be talking signs of the times. That's our general domestic political segment where there's just a lot of weird stuff, and maybe some of it's appropriate for the end of October. I don't know about you guys, but I can't handle any more October surprises. It's like they're coming fast and furious. Evidently the Fuhrer and Donald Trump have been. Donald Trump was conducting seances, evidently, in the White House with Nancy Reagan's astrologer, hoping to get generals from World War II, specifically German generals, to help him with his problems. I mean, that's all according to eyewitness testimony sworn on a stack of Bibles, Joe.
That finally came out now, which is interesting, right?
Right.
Probably the biggest October surprise of all is that Barack Obama is quite possibly the only black man on the planet who cannot rap.
Now that's just racist to assume that somebody could rap because they're black. Urkel couldn't rap,
But I do Lose Yourself way better than he did. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, you got to remember that was a white boy rap,
that could be the reason.
Yeah. The shocking thing about that for me was the fact that they've got to run Obama in these blue wall states, right? These are the states that they must win, right? Or they should win without any trouble. Michigan.
So that's it, right? I mean, pulling out Barack Obama and Eminem in Detroit, Michigan tells you how panic-stricken they are. Those towns should have been an easy lock for them, but they're not.
And with all this money coming in from Elon Musk, he's handed out this free money for his get out the vote drive in these battleground states. They're saying, they're spending too much money, or they're trying to buy the vote. Well, of course, they don't mention that the Democrats are outspending Republicans 3-1 in this election. So,
and Bill Gates just gave them a whole bunch of money of questionable legality. But Arctic Boy, that's actually not true. Since I don't live in Michigan anymore, I'm legally able to say this. It's actually a crime in Michigan to say this, by the way. Donald Trump won Michigan in 2020, and he won Wayne County, which is Detroit, in 2020.
And here's the thing: based on a poll that I saw, Donald Trump is leading amongst Muslim voters in Michigan.
Oh yeah, the Muslims are not. They're not down with what Kamala has. So, but more importantly, my biggest sign of the times is right here in my hand. The partisan field knife from our friends at Shield Arms, Shield Knife and Tool. This bad boy is way better than their photo online gives it credit for. It's a really nice knife, got a great weight, real good balance. You need one of these. I'm about to drop a link in both of the chats. You need one of these. It's worth every penny, and they're very solid knives. I have both of their big knives. This is the Bob, the General Outdoor Field Knife. But this is an actual combat knife, partisan field knife, really good knife.
Well, it's obviously a knife for fighting, but it's also a really practical knife, I think,
It is. It's got a really nice, thick and heavy back of the blade for starting fires, running down your ferro rod. Good jimping on it. It's really good. It's got a good pointy blade. Very sharp. Yeah, much fun.
When we did the tour, they showed us those in person. And I was just really, I like the feel of it in the hand. It's got a great weight to it. They're using good quality steel, and those grips felt pretty good too. So,
and you know what? They've got choices between the stainless steel blade and this, they call it acid wash blade. I just don't like having things that are real shiny. So I always go with a darker blade. So real nice stuff. It's 3V steel, so really good.
Just don't drop it, in the woods at night, or you'll never find it.
Yeah, right. It'll be gone. So, what's funny is I went in there, and Wes, the brand manager, had said on Twitter, "Joe, you probably need one of these." I walk in there, and I'm like, "The one I want though says it's sold out online." He goes, it's sold out online because we had a box here behind the counter because we knew you wanted it. I'm like, yes.
Very good. All right. The
It was
episode.
funny. I walk into the building and
Yeah.
Stan and Brandon are in the coffee shop there in the lobby. And I was like, is this an intervention? And they both started laughing. And Brandon's like, no, we really just decided to take a break. And you walked in. I'm like, the odds.
All right. Episode 433, I think we are. Yep. And so we'll be talking about all these things and more. We will be doing the domestic sign of the times segment will be on Rumble only. So there's that. So make sure you are prepared. But we will give you plenty of warning. I almost opened the show to a completely different cold opening, but I was talked off the ledge at the last minute by Watcher. But still, I want to share with you guys the video that instead of our normal high impact opening that we normally have, this is what you almost got. And this is kind of a callback to our old Saturday night shows where we used to screen Sharpe's rifles. Watcher, do you have that video queued up? Yeah, let's play this for the folks. If you haven't seen this, guys, this is art.
Here's 40 shillings on the drum.
I don't know that I should better use of Lego.
To come to list and fight the foe today, over the hills and far away. O'er the hills and o'er the plain, through Flanders, Portugal and Spain, King George commands and we obey.
Nothing captures memories.
Like it when deep out.
I must go to stand and face another foe. The part of me will always stray over the hills and far away. O'er the hills and o'er the main, through Flanders, Portugal and Spain, King George commands and we obey. Over the hills and far away. If I should fall to rise no more, as many comrades did before, then ask the fifes and drums to play over the hills and far away. O'er the hills and o'er the main, through Flanders, Portugal and Spain, King George commands and we obey. Over the hills and far away. Then falling lads behind the drum, with colours blazing like the sun, along the roads to come what may. Over the hills and far away. O'er the hills and o'er the main, through Flanders, Portugal and Spain, King George commands and we obey. Over the hills and far away. O'er the hills and o'er the main,
Solid butts.
Flanders, Portugal and Spain, King George commands and we obey.
Audience are pretty.
Over the hills and far away. O'er the hills and o'er the plain, through Flanders, Portugal and Spain, King George commands and we obey.
Anyway, I'm sorry you guys had to sit
How
through
did they get a
that.
Lego that actually looks like
I know it looks like he's got the right uniform and everything. I feel like these are all custom made Legos. At first, I thought it was like some sort of AI CGI type deal, but no, I think that's real.
It was that's pretty good. It's pretty funny. Crazy stuff.
And they've done. I guess there's a
I
couple
saw a
more out there
question
where
about
they've
how are
actually
we at
done it.
50-50 on this election. It's pretty simple. They want it to seem like it's 50-50 this election. It really is not.
Yeah.
70-30.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't been looking at the polls a whole lot, so I went to Real Clear Politics, the aggregator, and I'll be honest with you, Real Clear's got Trump ahead and pulling away from Harris. And it's almost like all but one poll shows basically the same thing, especially in those battleground states. It's kind of surprising, honestly. I thought they would be a lot closer. At least the polls would make it look.
I don't know why, because when she was running for president herself the last time, she was the least popular candidate.
True. Yeah.
So,
well, the question is will we have enough of a lead to beat the steal?
no, because one of the things someone pointed at yesterday, and I said that's the way elections go now, is the Moldova referendum. That it was like 51-49, and like how is that even that close? Well, it's simple. They didn't allow anyone in Transnistria to vote, and then they took longer than normal to count the votes, and then all of a sudden they had just barely enough to push it over the top. They're going to make it look like you have democracy, but you don't. So
yeah. I missed a couple super chats in here. I want to make sure I get those. Phil Coglins, 999, says, you're welcome for the video. Yeah, by the way. Yeah, he tagged me on this one. Phil, I can't remember if I saw this in my feed first or if I saw it from you first, but I'll give you credit for it. I thought there was another. I guess it's over here on Rumble. Peter Shays Helicopter Tours for $5 says, why is election so close? Are we really at 50-50 or 20% radical and 30% sheep on the left? I'll say, since no one else will, we cannot coexist with anti-constitutionalist Thunderdome rules apply.
that's true, because they don't want to coexist with you either. So something has to give.
Yeah, just remember that 20% of radicals on the far left controls the whole show for them, right? And they want you dead. They do not want you. They don't think that you are an impediment to what they want. And what they want is less people and more power. So, what way that's going.
Yeah, all these states saying it's going to take them days to count their votes. Why? What's changed? Voting should be getting easier, not harder to count. So they just have to figure out how many they have to make up. So
if you think it's going well now, just wait. I'm curious to see what kind of bump we get out of after Friday, because of course the news has popped up that Trump will be going on with Joe Rogan on Friday, so that should be interesting.
We'll have to see what goes on too with the Israeli-Iran conflict, which we're going to be talking about here in just a little bit. But I just found these on my desk, and I would be remiss if I didn't point out that if you buy one of those cool knives, you will get slaps. Shield Knife and Tool, Knives of the North. And then this one just kind of cool.
I can't believe you, Joe, that you are bowing to peer pressure and calling stickers slaps.
I can't believe I just heard that.
Slaps, yo. Slaps.
I'm upset.
How urban of you.
Listen, man, you have to go with what the market will support, and that's slaps, bro.
I don't know about that. All right. Let's jump right into our odds and ends, shall we, gents? Enough of this Woolgate. We were already late in Gate at start, and then I made everybody sit through the expurgated version of the Sharpe opening, Lego opening. Let's jump right in. So we were talking the other day about the kind of So I guess it was last Friday we mentioned the Chinese exercise. Then we talked about kind of the blowback of that a little bit on Monday. So now China holds live fire drills on an island closest to Taiwan. So basically this drumbeat of kind of pressure on Taiwan continues. China held a live fire exercise from its territory closest to Taiwan 1 week after it launched a large-scale drill encircling the island. Chinese military drills off the Taiwanese coast have intensified in recent years as it claims that the self-governing islands have grown. Beijing announced late on Monday that an area around Niushan, an island 105 kilometers from Taiwan, will be closed for drills for 4 hours from 9 local time on Tuesday. Taiwan's Premier Cho Jong-tai said on Tuesday that China should not be conducting such exercises given the threat to regional stability. No matter how large scale the drill is, they should not be frequent and close to Taiwan. This will only cause unnecessary tension. Although Taipei has called the drills routine, analysts believe China is likely sending a message given their proximity to Taiwan. Joe, I mean, this is absolutely not a surprise for me. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise for you either. This is just that kind of steady drumbeat of I don't want to say provocation, but it is provocative actions against Taiwan.
Well, what's going to happen is they're going to continue tightening this noose, and they're going to be like, but it's always been this way. We've always controlled these waters this tightly. They're just going to keep creeping over that line until eventually Taiwan is completely cut off and no one can do anything about it. They're not doing anything that's going to prompt a response from anyone, but they are de facto establishing a blockade.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting kind of brinksmanship type of thing. I just get the feeling that that China's going to try to push this until eventually something happens. Just kind of I'm looking at a different story here. There are a couple of points here. So this is in the same area where the U.S. just sent a freedom of navigation ship through just 2 days ago. Let's see, 2 days. Yeah, it says 2 days after U.S. and Canada each sent a warship through the Taiwan Strait. Let's see. No matter how. Oh, this is the Taiwan's premier again. No matter the scale of the exercises, there should not be meaningless shows frequently or near to Taiwan. And so basically, he's speaking out against the provocative nature here. It's the exercises they just had, though, Joe, were pretty telling. I think. I think it signaled what their actual strategy would be in a confrontation with Taiwan, which is blockade and not invasion. But just the numbers, right? So the numbers kind of came out on how many ships and planes and everything were involved in it. You had 153 aircraft, 14 Navy vessels, 12 other government ships. So that's a mixture of their maritime militia and the Coast Guard. And those were all simultaneously deployed around Taiwan. Now, let's be honest. I mean, that's not a huge amount, and they could put a lot more out there. But ultimately, that's still a pretty big show of force.
It is. Again, once they start stopping ships is when we're going to see an elevation and an escalation. So,
yeah. Anyway, so I thought this is just another kind of great, next step in what we could potentially see happening with China. And I think we're going to continue to see these drum beats. And I'll be honest with you, kind of shifting gears just a little bit. I don't know that this helps Kamala at all. I think one of the questions shown on the polls is trusting who do you trust in a kind of a national security kind of situation, and like not a close majority, but a broad majority show that Trump is much more trusted with the international conflict type things. So I think this is honestly good news for Trump if this kind of stuff continues, that steady drumbeat leading up to the election.
Yeah.
You watch China a lot. What's your thoughts on this?
My thoughts on this have been playing for a long time. It's interesting that Canada, Germany, and Australia would be eager to jump into it at this point, given the recent revelations about U.S. strength. But all right, I guess we're all in for the ride.
I'm going to point out that it's the joint Australian and New Zealand command that just ran a ship aground. So
yeah.
Wow. Oh yeah. It was the DEI captain that was in charge of that.
Yes, Z did run into a seamount.
And apparently one they knew about.
Yes.
I can't imagine there's a whole lot of seamounts in that area that they don't know about.
You'd think being an island nation, you would pretty much know all about all of the islands and what's around them.
Yeah.
Just a guess, though. I wouldn't know.
I mean, expecting the Navy to do their job, Joe? Come on. They don't operate in the littoral waters near coastline where that kind of stuff's dangerous. That's why they have the littoral combat ship to do it for them.
You know, Marlene, they're probably not saying Z is going to help them in the election, but they are. I'm waiting for them to say that Donald Trump is the reason why McDonald's currently has like 40-something cases of food poisoning. Yeah. They're going to say, Donald Trump did that.
Well, anyway, Marlene, here's the thing, right? You can't worry. That's the kind of thing you just can't worry about, right? And here's the reason why you can't worry about that. Because we actually know there is absolute proof that the Labour Party in the UK is sending over 100 staffers over to help. So this is foreign participation in domestic.
Yep.
And nobody cares. And so why should we care about what they say about us hey,
you know what? Let me go a step further, and this is an important part. This is an important point. I haven't mentioned it in quite a long time, but it really is. This will help you in your life going forward. Realize that the ultimate truth of leftists is they do not use language for communication. They only use language for manipulation. That's it. There is no communication whatsoever from one point to another. It's purely about controlling you. I'm not exaggerating that. That's stated by their own philosophers. It's stated by their own professors. It's stated by their own teachers. There is no point in engaging them. There's no point of worrying about what they're going to say because they will say anything. They will tell you red is blue. They will tell you this. They will tell you hot is cold, as long as it serves their purpose. So stop caring about what they say ever.
I read a book about that. Written back in the 40s called 1984. Anyway, I want to address Calveras, your comment that Teddy Roosevelt is 36 hours away from Taiwan. It will all be over by 36 hours. 36 hours is an eternity in modern warfare.
Correct.
By the way, Daisy Girl, I read your story in the chat, man. That is rough. You don't deserve that. You're like one of our she's got a little 2-part thing here in the chat, and based on that, it just sounds like a real pain in the ass. Anyway, yeah, it's life is tough, and sometimes life is a lot tougher than it needs to be. And unfortunately, there are terrible people out there that make it even more rough than that. So, prayers are with you, going through a tough time. You've been very good to us. So I just want to say that and support you.
Thank you for taking care of other people too. I just read that. That's awful.
All right, let's move on, shall we?
Speaking of awful, Putin, you shouldn't be allowed. No, you look. If your organization is called BRICS, you're no longer allowed to be called a bloc. We don't do brick blocks. That's
Putin opens BRICS summit, calls for blocks expansion. BRICS blocks expansion. Yeah, exactly right. The BRICS summit kicked off in Kazan under Putin's leadership, emphasizing its aim to boost its global authority. Putin highlighted the growing interest from countries in joining the BRICS, asserting the group's significant economic, scientific, political potential. He urged to focus on addressing pressing global and local challenges to enhance BRICS' impact forward. Something tells me they are not going to be worrying too much about climate change. I mean, Joe, we've got all these sanctions against Russia. How did these people even get into Russia? I don't understand. I thought the sanctions created a magical wall of force around Russia that nobody could pass through.
Sure. BRICS is destined to become a military alliance at some point. So
I think we
Yeah,
call them the Lego Alliance if they're brick blocks.
Well, there's some
listen,
interesting
we don't
stuff.
do them fake Legos here. We spend all the money and get the real ones.
Well,
None of this
there was
Duplo garbage. Get it out.
there was some interesting symbolism during the opening photograph that they posed for, where basically you had Xi on one side of Putin and Modi on the other side of Putin, right? And we just reported the other day that China and India are trying to kind of simmer down now, along their shared borders where they've been beating each other with axe handles for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Well, if you're China, you want to certainly settle that down just before you begin hostilities elsewhere.
Yeah.
And of
You
course,
kind of
this
want to
comes
keep it
in the
safe
same
in the back.
timeline in which we have ceded sovereignty, or the UK has ceded sovereignty of Diego Garcia to a country that didn't ask for it.
Well, I mean, UK has a habit of doing this voluntarily of their own volition. I give you Hong Kong. Nobody forced them to give up Hong Kong. They did that entirely on their own volition.
Kind of like the United States in the Panama Canal Zone, but hey.
I mean, so you could argue kind of like America and the Philippines.
Yeah, that's true.
There was a serious effort to make the Philippines a state all the way up into the 1970s. Did you know that?
Yep.
I knew that there was some talk about it going back to like the 1920s and, like the whole Blackjack Persian times and all of that. Because it was a colony, right? Or a territory or something. It was a possession. It was a U.S. possession until we liberated them post World War II. And so, I didn't realize it was continuing on even into the 70s. So that was, I would not have supported that ever, by the way. All right.
One welfare state.
Any more thoughts on? Well, actually, they speak a lot better English than some of our other territories, I think.
I'll tell you this though. Out of a sense of loyalty and honor to that, there are more Filipinos in the U.S. Navy than any other nationality that I know of.
Facts. The Filipinos also have specifically in the freaking the Chiefs Club, basically. If you see tans in the Navy, there's probably a 40% chance Filipino.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, I was just thinking about that the other day, and thought I'd mention it. All right, let's. Any other thoughts on BRICS and all that, gents?
Yes, we have created, stoked, and driven people to the implement of our destruction.
Yeah,
we really watching
can't get angry about anything BRICS related. It's entirely our fault.
Oh, well, all these sanctions have actually made it happen, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they've actually empowered BRICS with what they've done. So,
funny thing about sanctions, they're entirely voluntary, right? They rely on countries having the honor to honor it, and most of them do not. It's not in their interest.
Right. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, we're in the early stages of what is essentially going to end up being some sort of a 21st century version of the Warsaw Pact, except for this time it will probably center as much around China as it does Russia. But because Russia still has, the huge advantage of nuclear weapons over China, but still, I get the feeling that, with the population collapse that we're going to see in Russia over the next 30 years, I think China is going to have some big advantages over Russia inside the BRICS kind of sphere. But that'll be interesting to see where that all goes.
Everyone keeps telling me about the impending Chinese population collapse, but trust me, China has a plan for that, and it's breeding with conquered peoples. So.
Well, yeah. The other part of it is China doesn't need 1 billion people, right? China probably is like, hey, we'd actually be better off with about 800 million.
I was going to say, on the doorstep of creating automation that is going to wipe out millions of people's jobs and make them economically redundant, China is looking at not having as many people. Oh, weird.
Yeah, works out. Sort of works itself out. We fixed the glitch.
Right. All right, before we move on here, let's Kelvaris for $5 says, thanks for doing this every morning. I write while listening to you guys. Hey, we appreciate you, brother. Hopefully our off the wall commentary on all this crazy stuff in the world doesn't, hopefully you don't have to crib from us in your writing. All right.
Heaven
Let's
forbid.
move on with our next one, shall we?
Sure.
So this is pure entertainment, if you ask me. I watched this, and I actually, in all fairness, I saw it at work, and I shared it with my fellow.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, man. Watching Chunk Yogurt getting beaten with a verbal bat is always a good time. Yeah, there we go. And by a Palestinian who supports Israel and the IDF in their current war against Hamas, and correctly attributes what's happening there to terrorists and not to some sort of, benign sainthood that the Palestinian people have.
Who authorized you to speak on behalf of the Arab children of Gaza? Who authorized you?
You just did. You
never been there. You don't care.
So am I
And
Palestinian
now
or am I
you
not?
think you hold the higher moral ground. You don't.
I do.
You're not the savior. You always need a victim in order to pose as the savior. You're not the savior. First, learn how to control yourself. Learn how to control your tongue buds before you try to control the world. It's a big situation in Gaza. All of us are heartbroken for the death of the children of Gaza. All of us. That includes Israel. Israel considers what's happening in Gaza a tragedy. It's a tragedy made up by the terrorists that you sympathize with, that you want to validate and legitimize. Then we will have to deal with the chaos that you create, your emotional being, going all over the place. Who authorized you to speak on the behalf of the Gaza? Nobody did.
You did.
You self-proclaimed, just like Mahmoud Abbas, just like Yasser Arafat, just like all the Palestinians who have been feeding on the pain of the Palestinian children. You are a parasite, a bottom feeder. This is what you are. So before you speak against the prime minister of a democracy and accuse him of being a terrorist, you need to look at yourself in the mirror. You have been supporting Hamas and it's recorded against you for eternity. So don't play the game now that your fight is for the children in Gaza. This is not your fight. You know who's fighting for the children of Gaza? The IDF. That is killing Hamas. That is uprooting Hamas so the children of Gaza can have their freedom after 36 years of slavery. Those are the ones who qualify to speak on the topic, not you sitting in your comfort.
That just does my heart good.
Yeah, he absolutely destroyed him. But he's also not wrong there, right? I agree that Gaza's an open air prison. It's just not the one that everyone thought it was. The guards aren't who they think they are. It's Hamas using those people as human shields. So.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think it's
we're
really
sure that
telling.
guy is a Palestinian.
Yeah, I think yeah. I think it's really telling that he actually gives credit to the IDF for protecting the children, right? Because he accurately recognizes the fact that when a terrorist does something, then the people who get hurt by around the terrorist are other victims of the terrorists, right?
And listen, you can agree or disagree with the Israeli government all you want. If Israel wanted to do a genocide in Gaza, this would be over already.
It would have
Right.
been a lot easier.
They would have glassed the entire place. They would have just flattened it. But the fact that they haven't and the fighting is still going on a year later tells you they don't want a genocide in Gaza. They're trying to prevent a genocide in Gaza.
The other thing too, and this kind of blends into our next topic, but just you see people talk about like, well, people are getting tired of Gaza, right? And people are tired of Israel continuing. Gentlemen, until Israel roots out these people, I'm okay with everything that they're doing. I mean, like I don't know, but I don't get tired of hearing about Israel killing terrorists. Does my heart good. Now, I don't like to see U.S. troops involved, and I don't like to see U.S. money paying for it. But when Israel decides to do its thing, I support them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for anyone killing terrorists, but I don't know that we need to go for round 3 of the global war on terror and invest another 20 years in it. So.
I'm interested to see where this response against Iran is coming. And so my read on the THAAD situation, we're going to get into this here in the next segment here, but we kind of preview this a little bit. Is my read on this is that the THAAD systems are there for us to help them post Iranian strike response, because Iran, assuming they have the wherewithal to do so, is not going to sit idly by. And we saw those ballistic missiles that they shot earlier. Was it earlier this? Yeah, it was earlier this month. Were pretty effective, honestly. And I think that's one of the reasons why we moved those THAADs in there.
Let me just remind you, though, as you well know, this is actually for the people in the chat, that Geneva and Hague conventions don't care about the why. They just care that they are armed and uniformed combat troops fighting for one side or the other, making them belligerents, and therefore valid targets.
Yeah, that's.
I hate to say this, but I believe that is entirely the purpose. And I certainly don't put it past our government to allow some people to die in order to justify something else that they want to do.
Some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice we're willing to make.
I'm willing to make.
Rick asked, but what about the spy chick? I don't know if she's is she listed in our stories or not?
Oh, we're talking about the one via Iran.
Yeah, no,
we're not talking about that.
Yeah, we'll someday.
Rick, let me just say, yeah, bro, right, and that's all we can really say right now.
If you're interested in knowing why we're not talking about her, DM either Joe or Watcher and ask them, and they will tell you.
Well, yeah, well, someday, but that someday is not today.
Let me just say that in my day, that would have been someone who never got a security clearance.
Oh, facts. Oh, solid facts. But moving on.
We'll talk about that. If you want to hear about that, check out my locals page, because we'll probably be talking
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Before we jump into the Israel section of this, Joe, you already kind of talked about some of the things. I'm sure you'll be writing about knives this week, but what else do you have going on tactical-wisdom.com?
Well, we're just a couple of weeks out from an election, so I've got some words on paper here about what sort of readiness state you should be in. There have been a lot of odd buzzings and weird statements made by various parts of our government that don't make sense, like predicting a geomagnetic storm that you really can't predict. But they're pretty sure they're going to have one right around the election that takes down the internet for a few days, and which is ironic because geomagnetic storms don't take down only one thing. Just for the record, they're not very selective.
I was reading about that, and it's not fake. I mean, this is not like, it is. I don't know, and this is not like Jewish space lasers, turning on hurricanes at inopportune times.
No. But what I think is this: there will be a geomagnetic storm, but it's not going to have the effect they claim it's going to.
Right.
But they might use it as an excuse for something. So when I first made this post, I got 37 people who argued with me the science of it. I'm like, you're missing the point. I don't think it's really going to happen. I think they're going to use it as an excuse. Ironically, also, CISA is holding a grid down exercise that day, election day. And we all know what happens when the federal government holds an exercise, right? They were holding a terrorism exercise in downtown New York City on the morning of 9/11. So I'm just saying it's worth having a few extra preparedness items on hand. And the storm should have convinced us to you anyway. But no matter who wins, it is a long, long stretch of time between Election Day and Inauguration Day. And both sides are going to be absolutely unhinged during that time frame.
Yeah. So the interesting thing here is I don't think they will use EMP because that has too big of a signature. You can't hide that, right? I think what you're more likely to see is, even if there is any hint of actual natural effects, they could potentially be augmented by targeted cyber. Whether it's internal or external, that's not to be known. These are, and I'm not saying what it will happen. I'm not talking about a conspiracy that I have inside information on. This was just me as a writer, how I would, if I were engineering a poor result for our side, that's how I would do it. Yeah, and you're right, Joe. I think it's targeted to after the win versus. Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted.
And there's a lot of folks who say, "Hey, we haven't had an election this heated since 1859." I would challenge it's even more heated, and the power of social media and the power of the speed of the internet would amplify the collapse and therefore the violence much faster. So we're going to talk about being more prepared for that and being around. So. And yes, Chris, Black Swan Dragon Day, yeah, entirely possible. If you haven't seen the cheesy movie Dragon Day, you probably should. I'm just saying.
Which one is that? Remind me. I might have seen it.
It's a low budget film about the Chinese taking down the grid and taking over parts of the U.S., but it appears as though they had a hand from someone further up the food chain. So. It's a pretty good movie.
All right. Let us get into our main topic today. So we're going to talk a little more about the Israel thing. I don't even know if I don't even have like the vault, right? Let's talk about this first, and then we can kind of ease into the stories. Did you guys see the video that the IDF released, the location of here's where the vault with all the gold and the money from Hamas is, and apparently media showed up to that location, and guys with guns wouldn't let them go in the doors where they said there's nothing to see, and of course the hospital manager says you go into our basement, you can see there's no bunker complex here. Well, if you look.
This is not the bunker complex you are looking for.
Exactly. Well, and the bunker complex doesn't connect directly to the hospital above it. It's these access, points on either side of it. And that's where the guys with guns were. And that's where the media couldn't get into. It's not Mossad Monday. Well, it's Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, back.
Oh, you were gone?
Oh, yep.
You never talk anyway, Watcher, so.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, it's
I
good.
was
I'm
just
glad
talking
you're reading
about
that book.
the.
It's fantastic, by the way. She's reading a book at our recommendation, so that's pretty awesome.
Oh, okay. All right.
The Bear and the Dragon. Great book.
Watcher, can you find real quick the that video about the bank vault, the Hamas, the Hezbollah bank vault? Do you know the one
I'll
I'm talking
try.
about?
No, I don't.
Let me see if I can if I'm going to search on X for Hezbollah vault. Hezbollah, there we go. Hezbollah came out quickly. VAULT.
Yeah, I'm looking now too. I'm not seeing a video, but I've got a.
Oh, there we go. It's the first one that pops up. Israel War Room from 2 days ago, or the date yesterday. And it goes Nasr's money bunker. And so essentially what you have here, this is a hospital complex, right? And then there's an entry point off to the side, and then the bunker complex is directly underneath. And one of these rooms basically is full of gold and money and all that kind of whatnot. And if you remember, Joe, do you remember the beginning of the Gaza operation? There was all that controversy about that, about the hospital in Gaza, that, they're bombing this hospital area and all this kind of stuff. And the controversy about the casualties. And then, by the way, there really weren't that many casualties, or, because you pick up your.
Didn't actually hit the building; they hit the parking lot.
They did exactly
the
parking lot. They killed fighters, not the hospital.
This is how you know Hamas and Hezbollah are not actual military organizations and are indeed terrorists, because they do this regularly. They build their facilities underneath schools and hospitals to play on Western sensibilities. Let's be honest, only Westerners care about this stuff. The Chinese would have flattened the entire hospital and not cared about public opinion one bit. They do this to play against Western sensibilities. It's also why when people talk about their leaders living in penthouse apartments, their leaders don't live in penthouse apartments. They live in luxury apartments in the center of an apartment building, thus preventing Israel from being able to target them unless they take out the entire apartment building. These people are terrorists. Don't be surprised when they do terrorist things, like surround themselves with human targets.
Yeah. Watcher, I just dropped the chat and link in the private chat. It's got the actual video that shows how this whole thing works.
I mean, unlawful combatant's going to unlawfully combatant. I mean, it's how it works.
I think you dropped the wrong link. That's the chunk yogurt link again.
How did I get that one again? I got it right here. Chunk yogurt. I love that. There you go. That one works. Yeah, I thought this was interesting. Just the fact that Israel came right out and just kind of like, hey, here it is. This is where, they've got millions of dollars that they could be spending on their people. But what do they spend it? They hoard it and, use it for military purposes. So but
it's also kind of saying, hey, in a situation where the law in the area has collapsed to a degree that it hasn't in a long time, here's where a whole bunch of gold is.
Yeah, well, the building, just pause it here. If you go back a little bit so you can see all three buildings, it kind of explains. Yeah, so the building in white is the hospital, right? Now, you've got these two buildings on either side of it, or where the bunker access points are, right? If you fast forward or push play now, and you'll see that underneath the bunker, there's no connection to the bunker and the hospital. So, some of the media are going to the hospital and they said, "Oh, we're just pissing off there's no gold in the hospital." It's just, of course, because it's underneath the hospital. And like you just said, Joe, it's almost like indicative of the fact that they are terrorists, that you expect them to hide under schools, in and around apartment buildings and places like hospitals. I mean, this is exactly what I would expect of any terrorist group.
I mean, they're intentionally using the hospital as cover, trying to make it secure from a bomb attack. It's smart, but it's also highly illegal and should be treated exactly like it is, terrorist activity.
Yeah, they said there's 500 million in cash and gold in the vault. That's quite a payday if some enterprising group of people could get in there and check that stuff out.
I'm working on an enterprising group of people, and we're going to bring Watcher along to document it because the movie rights are going to be solid.
Nice.
Commando 13 goes on a raid.
Oh boy.
I'm about to get a text telling me don't say things like that.
I know.
Out loud.
Well, when I was looking at the diagram of this, it seems to me that you could drop bunker busters, like thermobaric bunker busters, on either one of those kind of access points and blow out the bunker and kill everybody inside, and yet keep the hospital intact.
There's a lot to be said for incinerating people in under a second.
Yeah. Gold Corp has entered the chat. Specifically going for the gold, right? I mean,
Listen, Gold Corp has nothing on Commando 13.
Facts.
Well,
good guys.
They have more memes, that's for sure.
That's true. I mean, they nearly overthrew the U.S. government, I hear, according to AOC. And Jimmy Stewart, the reporter.
Kevin Dorr brings up a valid point here, and I want to address it. I think this is valid criticism. He says, "Why do we take the IDF says on face? We don't take our DoD says on face value." Sorry, Scott. Yeah, here's the thing, right? Just because I don't trust everything that say the IDF says doesn't mean that this isn't exactly what I would do if I were a terrorist. Right.
There are also a certain percentage of folks looking at you who will say, no matter what, dem Jews wrong. So look at it from a historical perspective. Which side has a longer history of doing absolutely terrible and horrible things with civilians in the way? Well, they both do, but one has a much longer history of it. So. And we're going to disagree on who that is, Kevin, but okay.
Well, you know, Joe, for me, it's kind of like terrorists always act the same because they want to do everything they can to deny targets to people like us that follow the rules. I mean, let's be honest. We break the rules from time to time. So everybody does. But I think countries like the IDF or countries like Israel and countries like the United States tend to break the rules less than anybody else, right? And when we do, we generally kind of, for the most part, at least at the professional military level, we say our bad. We didn't mean to do that. Now at the national level, that may not be the case, Abigate. And so I think there's something to be said for that. That said, this is exactly what I think a terrorist organization would do. And I trust Hezbollah to be every bit the right bastards that terrorists have always proven themselves to be.
Now, at risk of hurting our Mossad Monday sponsorship and all of you people who are now calling us Israeli shills, let's get into the actual first story.
Well, this is important. I want to make sure. I don't think Joe or I are calling you out as one of those guys, Kevin. I think you've got a.
But it seemed to think I was, but I was not. I'm calling out a certain percentage of those people.
You've got a healthy distrust of the man, and let's be honest. I think we all do. So I respect that, and no worries.
I wish I had the ability to put people's chats up on the screen because I wanted to put Ron's from Rumble up on the screen for a second.
Let me see if I can get it.
Because I see what you did there, Ron.
I don't see it.
I'm not seeing Ron on this for some reason.
Is it a little further back?
Rumble, no.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. IDF or better PAOs. You got that right. Here's the problem. You got to remember.
Getting worse every day.
media operations are a commander's program. The PAO can only advise. It's not up to him. It's up to commanders, and we need commanders that are willing to put information in front of the media. That being said, you're right. The spokespeople generally do suck, I think. All right, gentlemen.
So, yeah.
Let's move on to our first story of this segment. That wasn't necessarily the first thing, but it's definitely the first story. Israeli ministers call for expulsion of Palestinians at Resettlement Gaza conference. So I'm hearing things like, "Hey, they're actually thinking about kicking all the Palestinians out of Gaza." And can I just say that I don't know that that's a bad idea. I mean, first of all, who wants to live in a cratered, rubble-strewn moonscape in the first place? Because that's what Gaza essentially looks like right now. Israeli ministers call for expulsion of Palestinians that resettle Gaza. On the conference titled "Preparing to Resettle Gaza" was organized by the Israeli settler organization Nishala and members of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party. At least 10 out of the 32 Likud party members in the Israeli Knesset were set to attend the conference, including May Golan, who is Netanyahu's government as the Minister of Social Equity, Social Equality, and the Advancement of the Status of Women. I mean, that sounds like DEI to me. In a speech at the rally, which drew hundreds of attendees, Golan vowed Palestinians in Gaza would face another Nakba, referring to the ethnic cleansing of Palestinian Arabs when the modern state of Israel was formed in 1948. And so this is where like Israel kind of loses me a little bit. I'm not a big fan of ethnic cleansing. You can argue that this is not ethnic cleansing, but it's, it is a gray area, I think. And maybe I don't know enough about it. Joe, I know you've probably looked into this maybe a little more than I have. Do you have any thoughts on this just before we kind of dig deeper into it?
Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Right.
At the root of all this is who was there first. I would point out that during the British mandate for Palestine, which was a forced thing, which hadn't existed prior to the British mandate for Palestine, vast numbers of people were moved in an attempt to move others out. So,
yep,
if that happened, who did they move out and why? And then but everyone says, but no, in 1947, all these people moved in and forced the others out. Yeah, those people had done the same thing 20 years before. So this is an argument that's going to go all the way back to the dawn of time. And I believe that Abraham was probably the first person there. So,
Joe, I always like to trot this piece of trivia out because it lets me talk about the Roman Empire. Do you know who named the Palestinian province, right? The Romans. It was the Palestine was originally a Roman province in their kind of conquest of the Levant.
But the Romans were there several thousand years after this all began. So
no, I know. My point is the name
people.
comes from the Romans, right? It's not even
Yeah.
So are you claiming some Roman heritage or something by calling yourself a Palestinian? So I mean, it's that's why I don't feel too uncomfortable. But at the same time, kicking somebody, I also am an individualist, right? And an individualist says that I don't punish people today for the sins of the father, right? And it's like if you do your thing, you should be able to live your life in peace, right?
Right.
But it's never as clean as that, right? And so it's tough. All right. We will hit where it hurts their land, Golan said, according to Hartz. Anyone who uses their plot of land to plan another Holocaust will receive from us, with God's help, another Nakba. They will tell their children and their grandchildren about it for the next 50 years.
So that's exactly the point. So regardless of who was there first and who's there now, if you're using a part of the land that's adjacent to me to plot my death and destruction,
Right.
I'm
Then you
allowed
don't-
to do something about that. And if you continue to do so, I guess the only thing I can do about that is burn your house down. You're either going to burn mine down or I'm going to burn yours down. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, no, Ron's absolutely right. Before the Romans show up in about, I think it was 100 BC. Anyway, I can't remember exactly when they conquered that portion of. You had all kinds of other tribes and biblical names. Yeah, that's because that's where Judea was. That's where Israel was. What was
Judea
the
is
other?
still there for the record.
I know,
Not
and I mean,
was.
well,
You
but
said
it's
was.
not a separate nation of Judea. But it was a Jewish kingdom, right?
They were both united, still
Yeah.
are. But anyway,
Anyway, Judea was a separate kingdom from Israel at one point. Is that not true?
only when conquered by someone else. They were generally allied the entire time. So
Yeah. But I thought there were 3 Jewish kingdoms at one point.
what does that have to do with the point now?
No, I'm just saying,
My point was, you said Judea was there. Judea is still there. That's the point I'm making. It's
you're saying like the
Israel, just
land.
like it was then. So, anywho,
I
point
feel like
being,
we're talking past each other on that one, so I'm just going to drop that one.
Yes, we are. At least 50% of us.
All right.
I was just correcting a geographical point that Judea has not gone anywhere. It is still right where it was. That's all.
Wow. Speaking of correcting things, our next title is.
No, we're not. We're not done with this one, Walter.
We're not.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
Trans
The National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, leader of the Jewish Power Party, also delivered a speech at the conference, and he received a very warm welcome. Basically, they were saying, "Hey, this is the next prime minister," and they talked further about death penalties for terrorists, which goes to exactly what you were saying, Joe. Like, if these people are terrorists and they do things that they should. We shouldn't reward these people with land for committing these crimes, which I think is correct. In his speech, said, "We will encourage the voluntary transfer of all Gazan citizens. We will offer them the opportunity to move to other countries because that land belongs to us." Which is exactly kind of your point, is like this land was always Israel. This land was always Judea.
So,
this land... just because somebody lives on it, doesn't make it not ours.
Got a quick bone to pick.
Yes.
When is it resettlement and when is it ethnic cleansing? Because it seems like if it's something that the left wants to do, it's resettlement.
When you kill someone, it's ethnic cleansing.
Yeah. So this would not be ethnic cleansing then, now would it? Because they're basically talking about offering these people plane rides to wherever they want to live now.
It's not ethnic cleansing.
Hey, Ron, feel free to join the group and give us a quorum here. Otherwise, we appreciate the comment. Let's see. Other Israeli ministers who attended the conference include the finance minister, the minister for development of the Negev and Galilee. Daniel Weiss, the leader of Nachala, vowed that Jewish settlements would begin popping up in Gaza within a year. In less than a year, each one of you can call me and ask me if I succeeded in fulfilling my dream. You will now witness how Jews go to Gaza and Arabs disappear from Gaza. Anyway, so there is clearly some political will here within Israel to essentially occupy Gaza now that this, we're basically seeing the expungement of the Palestinian occupation of Gaza. It'll be curious, Joe. The tough one will be finding any country who wants to take one Palestinian refugee.
Well, yeah. All the others are like all the other Arab nations are like, oh man, I'd love to, but man, I got to change the sheets that day.
What's it's
Uh,
like seats taken, you know.
yeah, my wife's changing her burqa that day, so you can't come over. It's like that guy that like everyone knows him and he's fun to hang out with, but you don't want him at your house. And he's like, "Hey man, can I come crash at your place tonight?" You're like, no, man, we got a thing. One of the kids has lice, or so you give any reason to not have him come stay at your house. Those are the Gazans. Those are the Palestinians. Nobody wants them. Everyone wants Israel to take them, but none of them are willing to help. So they're also not pouring millions of dollars into Palestine. We are for some crazy reason. So Kevin
Yeah.
Dorr, they're not going to send them to Dearborn because if they were, they would have already done it. Most of the people in Dearborn are not Palestinians. There's a lot of support for the Palestinians there, but there are not a lot of Palestinians in Dearborn. There are a lot of Jordanians and Yemenis, but there's not a lot of Palestinians. A lot of Iraqis.
All right. Yardic boy for $2 says Canadian. Unfortunately, Canada, we just took 3,000 fam. Yeah, took on 3,000. Yeah, so Palestinians, right? Something tells me that I don't know, the Canadians are going to feel very welcome. I mean, the Palestinians are going to be feeling very welcome in Canada when they get to the winter. They're going to be like, wait a second, can I go back to Gaza this winter?
They get snow in Israel and Palestine.
In the mountains, sure, but not near the coast where all the people live for the most part.
I'll listen. I will take up Scott on that. I'll take up Scott's side on this. I thought I understood what I thought. Hey, I live in a mountain town that is based around skiing. That's where I grew up. A place where even though we got literally, legitimately, sometimes 12 feet of snow over a weekend and just all piled up at once, they still wouldn't cancel school. And you know what I mean? I thought I knew what it was to have bad winters, and then I went up to Canada where most of the towns are built. It's weird. There's an apartment complex and it's above ground, and there's a shopping center, and it's below the apartment complex in a system of underground tunnels that connect to all of the other buildings because during the winter nobody wants to go outside ever.
All right, moving on. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I wanted the people who said that we are taking all the Mossad money. On Wednesday we can show the good, the bad, the ugly of the Israeli side as well. So I think it's important to show a fair and balanced view of what's going on over there. All right, let's see. Let's move on. So this is an article from The Guardian. Good news. Israel confirms killing of Hashim Saifuddin, presumed next leader of Hezbollah. I mean, they weren't even able to do the change of command ceremony yet, Joe. It's
yet another austere religious scholar goes to meet his God.
Well, it's the nice thing about the Israelis killing them in bunkers is it kind of takes care of the burial and everything, right? It's it's like
Right.
instant funeral, right?
You
get a pyre of smoke to mark.
I don't know if y'all saw it or not, but there was quite a dumpster fire when I mentioned that we should not be venerating the last guy as some sort of a hero, right? Because somebody drew a picture of him. I think it was Sprinter had this cartoon drawing of him. Something about comment about your beliefs on the martyrdom of so and so. It's not martyrdom. He was literally a coward. He died on the phone begging the Israelis not to kill him. And they're like, "Oh no, he died a hero." These men are not heroes. These men are terrorists. They're garbage scum who hide behind women and children. They're not fellow warriors. So
Yeah.
That was a wild chain on Twitter. It's crazy.
All right. I it's just, let me kind of go on with this guy here. In a statement on Tuesday evening, Israeli military said strikes in the suburb of Denia had killed Hashim Saifuddin and Ali Hussein Hazima Zima. Oh, that reminds me of the 90s. The head of the militants group intelligence branch 3 weeks ago. Oh, so this happened 3 weeks ago. They're just now confirming it. Okay. It was the first time Israel confirmed the killing of the most senior political official in Hezbollah after the former Hassan Nasrallah was killed. Saifuddin was the head of Hezbollah's highest political decision-making body, the Executive Council, and was reportedly picked as a successor for Nasrallah some years ago. He was also a cousin of the former Secretary General and having much of the same charisma and inspired the death cult of personality around Nasrallah. His fate was unknown after the Israeli strikes on 3 October. Hezbollah had reportedly not been able to reestablish contact with Saifuddin since the strike, and rescue workers were prevented from reaching the site of the bombing. It remains unknown who will take the helm as the next leader of the group. Joe, they may be better off just like not telling anybody.
Oh, yeah, there's people who are like, no, man, I'd like to take the job, but
my back's bothering me, guys. I got a profile. I'm not going to be able to.
My gout's acting up.
Hezbollah, they are gone. We are Hezbollah. Sorry.
Well, and we saw how hiding in the battlefield worked out for the Hamas leader. So I mean, there are a lot of strategies to surviving Israeli combat operations, and clearly they have not found a successful one yet.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. Darth Kitty, Zima, and Jolly Ranchers. I assume, you were one of those fun-loving college girls back in the 90s, because that was the drink of girls in collage. That
was the White Claw of its day.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. It was because Zimas were way cooler than wine coolers. Wine coolers are what your parents drank, but Zimas are what all the kids drink.
Bartles and James is the grandparents. Zima is the parents, and now we got White Claw.
Well, I don't know if Bartles and James are the grandparents. I think the Ernest and Gallo, the jug of wine. You remember that it was like this big glass jug with the.
It's two things that are funny. First of all, I see the chat going wild about Cami. Yes, if you see wild typing, this new office has windows that look outside, and there are birds that land on the ledge. So Cami is running back and forth across the desk and pushing buttons. So the random typing is the cat, and you may see her dodging through here. But the other thing is, we were at the store here in Big Fork at the old Harvest Foods. That if you've been out here with us, you know where Harvest Foods is. And the lady in line in front of us had a box of wine, a big old box of wine, but she also had the small little cardboard box with the lid. And Allison looks at me and I go, "That one's for the ride home."
You know what's sad, and I have
road box.
So like
road box.
I had a wine snob girlfriend back in the 90s, right? So I learned a thing or two about wine. But ultimately, what I determined was that Franzia box wine was way too good for it to be a box wine. I'm not saying it was good wine. I'm just saying it was way better than any box wine had any right to be. And it made drinking Ripple and Mad Dog.
I was just going to say, I wonder where Mad Dog fits into all this. Like, what's Mad Dog? That's like the illegitimate son. Yeah.
Well, in the 80s, I always heard about Mad Dog, but I never had any until I went to college in the early 90s. And that was the sad thing, is Kiwi Mad Dog. Oh, it was awful.
Oh, don't worry. None of the flavors are any better. Banana Red says hi, by the way, everyone out there.
Karen, it doesn't surprise me that you were a Zima drinker either, but weren't we all bigger drinkers 30 years ago than we are now? The boomers have entered the chat. I love it.
We got some for old time's sake. A bunch of us got a bottle of Mad Dog one day and took a sip. Like, it's like drinking pure sugar, and it's gross.
Well, I'll be honest with you.
It's bad.
It was after trying the Mad Dog that I just stuck with Mickey's for about 3 solid years. Like Mickey's was literally about the only thing.
So listen, Squishy. Here's why I'm not pushing the Malort in this discussion. We're talking about cheap, terrible wine. Malort is cheap, terrible whiskey. So there's a big difference.
Right. And if you're wondering how this fits in with future conflict and preparedness, I mean, if you're not ready to throw down some serious alcohol, then you're not ready to prepare. You gotta, it's a trade item, and you need to know what you're trading. So you have to sample it all beforehand. So, let's be honest, everybody likes, a good night of drinking leads to future conflict.
About 9 months down the road.
Anyway. 9 months down the road. That's a different kind of. Oh, you see, I knew I'd get somebody with the Mickey's reference. Yeah. Come on. Daisy Girl, I don't know about this. All others are very high. I mean, like I said, the Mickey's was basically just what malt liquor, right? It was basically
all the talk of cheap, terrible malt liquor, and nobody's brought up Cobra yet. I am shocked.
There's a reason why none of us brought up Cobra. So
yeah, I don't think that was. I don't think that was in our wheelhouse, my friend.
I was just from the Detroit area. I'm not actually from Detroit.
All right.
Anywho.
Hold a second. I'm just gonna see if there's anything else. There's a little more to history, but I'm not interested in that. Anyway, the important thing is Ding Dong, the witch is dead again, and another one bites the dust.
I want to also flip the script on you. You said a night of drinking leads to future conflict. I also think future conflict quite often leads to a night of drinking.
This is true.
This is true.
You got a really good point there, Joe. It's like you've got to be willing to if once you've had the fight, then you need to be able to celebrate, right?
Yeah, it's one of them. What do they call them? Vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let me move on to our next one here. And so this is where, all of this kind of brings us to, we really didn't talk about Iran much of this. We've been focusing on the Gaza. We focused on Hezbollah leader getting killed, but kind of the other shoe that is yet to drop is Israel's response to Iran's ballistic missile attack on Israel. And I think bringing THAAD into the equation, which is what they've done. We have at least one battery of THAAD on the ground now, and there is rumor, going around. The second one will be sent in, which honestly seems like a lot to me, because THAAD is one of those kind of really low density assets that you just don't have a lot of them.
Well, it goes further to the whole let's empty the entire U.S. arsenal before a conflict with China even begins. Hi, Thor. You have thoughts on this?
He wants to talk about THAAD. He's like, I'm down.
He said parties are always fun until THAAD shows up, right? Yeah, that's what I thought.
All right. Let's see. The U.S. military has rushed its advanced anti-missile system to Israel and is now in place, says Lloyd Austin. THAAD, or Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, is a critical part of the U.S. military's layered air defense systems and adds to Israel's already formidable anti-missile defenses. The THAAD system is in place, said Austin, speaking to reporters before he arrived in Ukraine on Monday. He declined to say whether it was operational, but added, I can't imagine he would say it's in place if it wasn't already operational. We have the ability to put it into operation very quickly, and we're on pace with our expectations, unless they haven't set it up in a site and they're waiting to kind of, push it to a specific area before attack. He declined to, let's see, the missile defense battery was sent by the U.S. military to protect Israel in the case of Iranian reaction to an expected Israeli reprisal attack following Tehran's. So this is what, I guess this was the point I was trying to make, Joe, that now that they've showed up, that's to me a kind of set the conditions for Israel to be able to attack. And, so I think what we've seen is an effort on the part of the U.S. in order to kind of temper Israel's response, right? Like, hey, don't blow up the oh god, Everclear. I'm sorry, I just got distracted by C West being the. Sometimes we're gonna have to talk about flaming Everclear shots, but anyway, sorry about that. I got distracted. Let's see. Austin's comments came a day or two after reports indicated that THAAD system was already operational on the ground in Israel. The Cannes public broadcaster reported Sunday evening that missiles defense battery had begun operations in Israel, citing 2 Israeli sources, while the Saudi-owned Al Arabiya outlet quoted sources saying that 3 batteries were functioning. So 3 batteries are not functioning. Yeah. Maybe 3 sites. I don't know. Anyway, around 100 U.S. troops were expected to be deployed to operate the system, which is considered a complementary system to Patriot, but can defend a wider area, capable of hitting targets at ranges of 150 to 200 kilometers, 93 to 124 miles. Pentagon said Tuesday that an advanced team of U.S. military personnel and initial components necessary to operate the system had already arrived in Israel. Pentagon spokesperson Pat Ryder said at the time the additional U.S. military personnel and THAAD battery components would continue to arrive in Israel over the coming days. The deployment of THAAD battery to Israel underscores the U.S. commitment to defense of Israel and to defend Americans in Israel from any ballistic missile attacks by Iran. Okay, so Joe, what do you think? Is this basically the first in us the first step in dragging us into this conflict, or is this just a prudent kind of step to help an ally?
It's not prudent at all. If I wanted to help an ally, I would just give him the THAADs and train a few guys on it. The Israelis are perfectly capable of operating a THAAD battery on their own. Thank you, Cammie. But what it is mission creep. And what's going to happen is we're going to dip our toes in the water. Then all of a sudden we're like, hey, I'm up to the waist. And all of a sudden, wow, we're swimming and we're not doing well. So it's the beginning of it, and we're gonna roll right in the middle of this thing. They feel a need to go to war with Iran. They have for a very long time, and this is a great way to do it. But it's really one of those interesting things that I just can't figure out, because they're doing everything in their power to empower Iran. It makes you wonder if the entire point of the JCPOA was to eventually lead us to war with Iran, because Iran would cross a red line at some point. So
yeah, I just get the feeling that this is I can't help but think that we're not going to see the attack coming very soon. I think we'll see Israel's response, and I don't know how many Fridays we've said this, Joe, but I think he potentially it's like every time we come to Friday
here, because the administration needs something to happen before Election Day, conflict-wise. So they're going to lean on their their allies to kind of make something happen to give them a win here in the home stretch.
I think we're getting. I have no idea when Israel's going to attack, but I think it's any day now. Mission creep. Yeah, Ron, you're 100%. That's where I think we're at with this too. And what makes it mission creep for me is the participation of U.S. troops, because as soon as a ballistic missile or some kind of terrorist attack happens to these guys, then all of a sudden it's casus belli that pulls us into some sort of broader support, even if it's Israel only defensive support, then we're going to be sending infantry units in to support to protect the THAAD batteries, things like that, and it's just one thing after another. Okay.
Somebody just asked if we're going to have a drinking game on election night or a live stream or something.
That'd be fun, but
it's entirely possible. I will be at Father Abraham's house that night, I believe, because I'll be coming back from a class in Tennessee. And I pointed out that I'd be passing his neighborhood on my way home. And he said that the door will be open and they will be drinking and commiserating with the election. So I was like, sold. I'll be there.
Yeah, I don't know what the plan is. I mean, for me, it's just another day at work. So, I'm going to be watching all of it. Says, your night for me is my morning. So I'll be watching. I'm rolling into work right when the polls start closing. So hopefully by the time I'm done with work that day, they will have called the election.
No, they've already said that they have no intention of calling it for several days, which is absolutely ridiculous. Just
this is
which is weird because Fox News already called it for Kamala. That was weird.
Yeah, this is actually as good a place as any for us to transition. One of the things that I won't say giving me it makes me feel good. But it makes me realize that the ground is slowly shifting underneath us. And I'm going to share my screen here, Watcher, and then we'll go into our previous stuff. This is a CNN fact check of Tim Walz, right? And when CNN, Commie News Network, is fact checking the commie candidate, then it's kind of interesting.
Let's talk about building. Let's talk about manufacturing. Building back up manufacturing in the United States is a focus of both campaigns. I want to play for you what Vice Presidential candidate Tim Walz said about this yesterday.
We want to make sure that you're able to bring manufacturing like Kamala Harris has did. We know Donald Trump lost more manufacturing jobs than any president in American history. Yep. That's simply factual.
What are the facts here?
Well, if you're going to say something is simply factual, it should be factual. This is not. It's not true that the Trump presidency lost more manufacturing jobs than any other presidency. Under George W. Bush, there were about 4.5 million manufacturing jobs lost. Under Trump, it was about 178,000. Now, there were also more manufacturing jobs lost than under Trump, under Eisenhower, under Ford, under Reagan. So Trump does not have the record. I think it's also worth pointing out for context that these Trump job losses in manufacturing overwhelmingly occurred because of the COVID pandemic. Pre-pandemic, under Trump, there was a gain of about 414,000 manufacturing jobs. Again, he ended a negative 178,000, but that was largely because we had a pandemic-related crash.
So this is just a little teaser of what we're going to be talking about as we go into this segment. But Watcher,
that's 100% true. He didn't lose the jobs; they were just temporarily shut down due to COVID. Exactly right. And any gains that they saw in the Biden administration came because of the post-COVID recovery, which was and these weren't new jobs being created; these were just people reoccupying jobs that had been, basically, shuttered temporarily during COVID. As you can tell, this is going to get a little spicy. But before we go over to our favorite Italian restaurant, let me make sure I close the loop on all the super chats. Kevin Dorf, $5 says, if Trump wins the amount, sabotage post-election will be off the wall, ramping up conflict, leaks saying Trump leaked a TS briefing, leaking his calls. Yeah, I think that we have kind of identified here in this program that it'll be may you live in interesting times. We will definitely be living in interesting times post-election, before the inauguration. So it's important to note on that note that Adam Kinzinger is out training for war. So
that's right. By injuring his friend.
He's already started shooting reporters.
Yeah, live fire.
How did Kinzinger bag the first reporter? That's what I want to know.
What's funny is it's proof that the movie Civil War was predictive programming, because the Civil War hasn't even started yet, and we've got people shooting reporters. So
UCO Steve for $2 over on the Rumble live chat says, "Don't forget Boone's Hill Farm." Yeah, don't make me. That is one that I don't have a lot of memories of because I think I was smart enough to avoid it after that Kiwi Mad Dog.
It's basically the same thing.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, this is like Mad Dog. Oh, then no thanks. I had the Kiwi Mad Dog. I don't think it can get much worse than that. There was a drink in this bar off base in Korea that the F&Gs had to called a fighter, Everclear vodka and a whole lot of hot sauce. Here's the one that really sneaks up on you. Are not the hard ones like that. It's the soju bowls, right? They're these huge bowls, right? It's basically punch and soju and ice. And Joe, you remember the soju we were drinking? I was mixing it with Mountain Dew. And that was just like, you could just drink that and not even know it. And
drink that, and all of a sudden you're speaking Korean. And
exactly right. Or at least Korean. You can. Yeah,
it was really good. That was good.
Yeah, soju will definitely sneak up on you for sure. All right. Gentlemen, that's all I've got before we transition over to Bongino's. Dolio, anything for the YouTube audience?
Yeah, I'm announcing that I'm going as Scott for Halloween. I'm gonna wear a Padres hat, and I'm gonna say things like "transition" and "stay safe" repeatedly, and I'm gonna mispronounce place names all day. It's gonna be pretty awesome.
Well, I mean, it's something to aspire to, Joe.
We all have to have heroes in your mind.
So there we go. I'm glad you recognize that. All right. Let's see. Watcher?
Yeah. What was the question? What we're looking forward to
Final
this week?
Thoughts for people for our YouTube audience?
Stay tuned, I guess. There's crazy stuff afoot this week, and by crazy stuff, a lot of it I don't even necessarily mean bad stuff. There's going to be just absolute insanity. There's wailing and gnashing of teeth happening already from the journalist class.
If you think people have shot at Trump before, wait until that happens. Anyway, I'm sorry, Roger. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's I truly say, prepare yourselves for this week. Will be entertaining, if nothing else.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. And we will leave for those of you on YouTube. We will leave it there. Hit the link; it's in the chat. Go on over to Rumble to catch the last 30 minutes of the show, and we'll see you over there.
2, 0, 1.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America. This is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone.
3, 6, 4, 6.
The chair is against the wall.
3, 6.
The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache.
8, 2, 5.
John has a long mustache.
8, 2, 5, 0, 9.
It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.